All right, so we've got 4 minutes left before the second segment of the event, but this is the best part, my favorite part. It's a quick community update, and so I'm just going to share my screen really quickly. Can everyone see my screen? Yes. All right. First up, very important announcement. I'd like to welcome Eva Bojorges, excuse the pronunciation. Eva is our new Docker Community Relations Manager. The Docker Community All Hands is a community first event. So what better way to start off at Docker than to be welcomed here. Eva, welcome, Eva. Very, very excited to have you part of the community team at Docker. So everyone here, look out, welcome her, join me in welcoming her, and you can ping her on Slack. The other segment, other part of this community updates is the community shoutouts, our traditional community shoutouts. So we have community members around the world who have gone above and beyond in the last, well, since DockerCon. We do these traditional shoutouts every quarter, and I'd love to really give special thanks to a few contributors who have just been incredible these past 3 months. So I'll begin with Francesco Ciulla, who he's also going to be hosting a live panel in a couple of minutes. No small feat. Francesco is a Docker captain who's just done incredible work in the past months. He's introduced us to Twitter Spaces. He's helped us host our last 2 events on Twitter Spaces. That was a lot of fun, but also really been extremely active, engaging community, and to help us with the announcement and communicating about the recent subscription changes that we've talked about earlier in the program. So thank you, Francesco. Also like to thank Idris Neumann. Excuse the pronunciation again. Idris has done incredible work engaging the Francophone community, particularly around the subscription changes. Again, this is really, really important announcement we made in August. And so thank you, Idris, for all the help in engaging the community. Manuel Riesbosch has done fantastic work on Docker Desktop. He's the maintainer of the Chocolatey project and has really done, also just been phenomenal with the 4.0 release. Thank you, Manuel. And Justin Chadwell, thank you for your contributions to HereDocs. So really, all 4, I really want to tip my hat and thank you for your contributions. Now, the shout outs continue. I want to give special thanks to our Docker captains. If you're new to Docker, our Docker captains are really kind of the creme de la creme of our community in terms of just engagement and the experience with Docker. Thank you to all the captains for incredible work. You've been instrumental in as we were preparing for our August announcement, and in terms. Thank you to the Docker captains. And last but not least, I want to thank all the hosts, panelists, and speakers of this event. Your photos, apologies if we missed one or 2 photos. We've got a lot of speakers. We're going to have a great program for the next 2 hours. As I mentioned, we're going to have regional sessions, next to each other in 5 different languages, and a live developer panel starting now in this room. So with that, really thank you, everyone. And this is the end of the first segment. We will start the next segments. So remember, we've got lots of rooms. You can join all these, so workshops, lightning talks, regional channels, or you can stay in main stage for the live developer panel. You are free to move around. This is a virtual space after all. All right. So with that, I will ask Francesco and the panelists to join this room for the live developer panel.
There we go. Perfect. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, we missed one. Welcome, everybody. Who are we missing? Rotem, Ali, Andrea. We miss Sarthak. He could have some connection issues. So let's get started. Okay. Okay, hi, I'm Francesco. I'm from Rome. I've always been a Docker fan, and I've been active, I think, a little bit too much lately on YouTube and Twitter, but I blame COVID for this. And I am a fresh Docker captain, even if I'm almost 40, because this happened a couple of months ago. And today, before I forgot, we will have two panels. The first one is this one that we're watching now, and it will be about Docker in different languages: Java, JavaScript, PHP, Python, Go, and Java. Have I missed something? No, I think I said everything. Okay. And the second one will be about how to get started with containerization. So, and the second one it will be in about 1 hour. So let's get started. Before we start, please, of course, you can leave your questions. And in the first 30 minutes, we'll ask some questions to my guests. And in the last 15 minutes, we will make some questions. Hey, Sarthak, just in time.
Hey,
Perfect,
hello.
my friend.
Thanks.
Perfect timing. Okay, so let's get started. I would like to start with Rotem Sagi. I don't know if I pronounced it well. She's a software developer at Sneak. Rotem, can you introduce yourself, please? Thank you for being here.
Yes, hi, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. So I'm a software engineer at Sneak, and I work on the container product. Specifically, my team does the core of container scanning, and I think that's the interesting bit.
Perfect. Thank you. And then we have Ali Al-Shabibi. I don't know if I pronounced it well. I hope so. He's a senior software engineer at Google. Hi, Ali. How are you?
Hi everyone. Thanks for having me. Yeah, I'm a software engineer at Google. And previously to Google, I had a startup where we used Docker extensively for our deployments and the products that we used. And before that, I worked with our friend Andrea here in Open Knowledge Foundation.
Okay, this is perfect because I didn't know this, but he is the next one. So thank you. This has been great. Now then we have Andrea Campanella. Andrea is Italian like me. Ciao, Andrea. Andrea is an European cluster leader at the Open Networking Foundation. Is that right? He's here for Java. How are you, Andrea?
Hello, everybody, and thanks for having me. Very happy to be here. Thanks, Lee, for the introduction. And yeah, I work at ONF. In particular, I'm in the Volta project where we deploy software-defined broadband solutions through Docker containers to deliver fiber to the home capabilities, fully virtualized environment, and we have everything in Docker containers, and all of our projects are Docker-based. So that's how I have my introduction to Docker community.
Perfect, Andrea. And last but not least, Sarthak Shrivastava. Now I know his surname, I think, and I hope I pronounced that well, or at least more or less.
Yeah.
He's a great person. He has a great YouTube channel. He's close to 100,000 of subscribers. We are friends. We talk almost every day. And he's here. He has done PHP and Python courses. He has made, I don't know how many videos. How are you, Sarthak? Is your connection okay?
Yeah, I think it's fine. If you can hear me, that means it's fine.
We can.
That's great.
Would you like to add something? Who are you?
Yeah, so thank you very much for your invitation, and it's really great to being with all these amazing people. And yeah, Docker is really close to every developer. So yes, I use Docker with Laravel applications because Laravel has something cool integration with Docker also.
Perfect, Sarthak. Thank you for being here. Okay, so let's start with the questions. So the first question that I'd like to ask to Rotem, and of course everyone else, what was your first approach with Docker? Because this is a question we also get kind of often.
So I think for me, to be honest, before joining Sneak, I only knew Docker existed, and that was pretty much it. I didn't work with it before at all. So I was very overwhelmed and very confused, going through some Docker for Dummies and every blog post I could find. But eventually I learned that I learned best by doing, so I just started playing around with it, going over every guide that I could find to try to kind of wrap my head around what's going on. And I still wrapping my head around a lot of things. A lot to learn still.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, we are never done. I think I started seriously with Brett Fisher on Udemy. I think. Yeah. What about someone else? Do you remember when you started?
Yeah, I mean, when I started with Docker, I was first there was a lot of confusion. I just was like, what is this thing? Why is this thing important? And what does it mean for me in my life? But so I basically started by just poking at containers and poking at Docker, and it took me a while to understand what it was for. But once I started getting it and started understanding how to deploy and build stuff with Docker, everything, my life just became incredibly easier.
Yeah,
nice. Great.
It's kind of the same for me. I actually started in university because we had a project and we had 3 different laptops and 3 different OSs, and we just were porting our containers over to test it. So that's how I got introduced.
The paradise, yeah.
It was much easier than sending over binaries and compiling them for Windows, Linux, and Mac at the same time.
Yeah. What about you, Sarthak? When did you get started with Docker? How? Can you hear me, Sarthak? I think he's freezed or he's really thinking really a lot. So I'll go with the next question. I would like to say this, ask this to Andrea. Which has been your first haha moment learning Docker? Because I think I had so many, but what about you?
So yeah, really right at the start, as I was saying before, in university, the idea of the composition of the containers and layering of one on top of each other was so much easier than rebuilding things every time. And also right there, seeing how when I started, the difference was in how lightweight a Docker image was instead of like a VM. And you could still run it and effectively have the same exact result. That for me was like, oh, this is perfect. This is what I need. Also to develop and collaborate with other people within a group, as in my university.
Absolutely, collaboration is key.
Yeah.
Yeah. What about you, Sarthak? Your haha moments with Docker? Do you had some? I don't know if you can hear me. Sarthak, can you hear me? Are you there, my friend? No. Rotem, what about you? You had some, oh, this is great, or not?
I mean, I think for me, it kind of follows up on the last question, because I was very confused for a very long time. And I felt, no matter how many guides I'm reading, I can't really comprehend how does it work, or at least bits of it. And I had one day I decided to try to dig a bit deeper, and I went and I saved a tar file from the image, and I went into looking into what's in there and going over the layers and understanding the whole, it's just a file system. It's just a bunch of files, and it kind of made it a bit easier for me to understand how the whole thing works and what's the impact of what I'm just writing this line in a Docker file. And oh my God, this is so cool. Created a bunch of things and everything works. And that was my most memorable one.
Nice. Sarthak, I'll give you another chance. Are you there?
Yeah.
Okay. Some haha moments. Don't worry.
So I started obviously when I have to create the course on Docker, but that didn't happen because when I started the Docker, I feel like this is good, but how I can use it with PHP, because at that time it was not like, I was talking about 1 or 2 years back. So that was not having a good integration. But as you know, I'm working with Laravel. So Laravel comes up with a cool new feature called Laravel Sail, which actually behind the scene do all the Docker stuffs, and you don't have to worry about that thing. So once you get the basics of what is Docker, what is container and compose files, everything, it's become easy with the Docker. So I had the knowledge of Docker before, but coming up with the Laravel Sail, it was become super easy. And that was the moment I was like, okay, this is really cool. I should dig more into the Docker thing.
Yeah, I've tried that, and I think we need to collaborate on this part. Stay tuned, Sarthak. Yeah, Ali, what about you?
Yeah, I think the major realization I had when I like started using Docker is really like you want to have one container do one thing and nothing more, right? I think
Perfect.
that once you understand that, you're already like halfway there. And then the next thing that really helped me is, you know, building a container and just running it. That's cool, right? But really, when you understand that like Docker is an execution environment, and that execution environment is homogeneous across any number of machines that can be running in a data center or even remotely from each other, like really distant from each other, that becomes super powerful because now whatever container you've built can be deployed, scaled across multiple instances, and you really haven't done much work to get there, right? Like you just have to say, you know, I don't know, Docker service scale, and bam, it scales up to multiple instances. I mean, of course, there's more work to be done to load balance, but that's a detail, right?
Yeah, you hear we're just talking, we are done not sharing stuff. And then, yeah, and now I have another question. I'd like to start with you, Ali, because I studied Go just a bit on the university. I've created some containers with Go, but I'm not experienced with that, just a very little bit. So, for example, related to your language, so the Go language, by the way, Docker is written in Go, if I'm not wrong, right? How do you set up your development environment, for example, to get started, and how do you create your environment? Is there something specific for Go or not?
In relation to Docker, I mean, not really, or at least I'm not aware of one. I'm very particular about how I do my development. I usually use the command line and I have nothing else because I don't like to have anything in my way in between. So I'm probably the wrong person to ask about development environments because I'm very opinionated about development environments. I think they're very personal to each developer. And, it's kind of like, you like a red car, I like a black car. Well, they're both okay.
Yeah, but I think that also the idea of this question is that maybe we will get the same answers because the main idea is exactly that. Andrea, what about you? For Java, I've done some Spring Boot applications for my university, and I've created the Docker out of that, of course. But what can you say about that?
Yeah,
From Java perspective?
again, the development environment to me, it's really whatever the developer needs to create the application that he wants to create, and in the context of Docker is just whatever it enables him to write the code and then packaging it in a Docker container. For me, in Java, I use IntelliJ, and then a Docker file I run it via command line. And that's it. As Ali says, I keep the bare minimum in terms of tools. I like the command line, and Docker command line is really good. And so that's what I have. It very bare bones developer environment, IntelliJ, and Docker command line.
Perfect. Yeah, Sarthak, what about you? Do you have some? When has been the last time that you have used Docker? Maybe in your PHP and also Python. Have you used that? So you have two languages. Great. You are muted. You are muted. Okay.
Yeah, so not much in Python. Most of the time I use it with PHP and Laravel. So I use as I said before getting the sale inside the Laravel. So it was all with the command line. So I use the command line all the time. But yes, to have everything with the Docker Compose file to create all these things, I use obviously VS Code and things. So not much. So this is the thing.
Perfect. Thank you, Sarthak. Yeah, I'd like to make another question to you about Docker Desktop. Do you have any thoughts? Have you used that, on which operating system do you use that? Docker Desktop is basically for Windows or Mac.
Yeah. No. I always use Mac and not much with the Docker Desktop. I just use a command line tool.
Perfect. What about someone else? Would you like to add something? Since I think Docker Desktop is one of the maybe most important tools for Docker. So do you have any thoughts? Anybody? Volunteers?
Yeah, I think it's super useful when you're trying to debug a subset of a system that you're building that's running in production somewhere. And it's also really handy to have little containers that are kind of always running on your machine that do things for you. They can, I don't know, whatever you want, whatever you can imagine they can do, right? But I think also just in the context of like launching a large scale deployment, being able to reproduce a minimal environment on your laptop is super powerful. Because that's often the problem with large scale systems, that you need a large scale machine to be able to run it, which is kind of silly, right? Like it defeats the whole point for a developer.
Yeah, to be honest, when I seen the Docker desktop runs inside a virtual machine, I said, "Why this? This is the idea." Yeah, Rotem, do you use Docker desktop? On which operating system do you use Docker?
I'm using Mac as well, so similar answers. I'm not sure I have anything super valuable to add here.
Yeah, perfect. I've done a video about how to install Docker on Windows, but basically it's the same for Mac. One day I'll make the same version of the same video in 1 minute. Yeah. Andrea, your operating system?
Yeah, I'm a Mac user as well.
Well,
What I really like is, as Ali said, I have a platform where I can just deploy a 3-node Kubernetes cluster with Kubernetes in Docker, and then I just have a development environment on my machine where I can test things. And if I have to test even a smaller subset, maybe just one container that maybe won't start, I just run it locally, and that helps me a lot. So Docker Desktop is really a really neat feature. Even though most of the time I use the command line for like running things and doing things like that, but having the capability to run it on a Mac is amazing.
Perfect. Thank you. Yeah. So, Andrea, another question about, for example, for some people, for some Java developers, is there any advice that you can give to them if they want, for example, start to use Docker, or how maybe they can improve their containerization experience?
Oh, indeed. So I would say that as much as possible, try leverage existing images that have already Java built in, and other tools such as Maven. So, for example, in our development, we use a Maven 363 OpenJDK 11 image.
Yeah.
We are an open source company at ONF, so we use all open source JDKs. So the OpenJDK is there. So using that base image gives you access to a lot of existing tools without having you to build one, and that's very important. And also make sure that in your Docker file you set the right environment variables. So the Java ops, the Java tool options as environment variables. That helps you a lot in fine tuning your Java program. So those are the two key elements. Really, we use the images and set the right environment variables for Java. Those are two things that might not be immediate, but if you're starting, you don't have to build it, and you tweak it as you want.
Yeah, I have another super fast question for you, Andrea, because I've also had some experience with containerized Java application. Do you build the image during the build image process, or do you use an already built image, for example? Because I've seen two approaches about Java. Of course, we are talking now.
That's a very good question. Usually, if it's a fairly small program, if it's a small application, for example, that can be built via Maven easily, we do that in the build. We do have some one of our project, which is called Donos, which is this operating system, is a little bit larger, and we use Bazel to build it. And there we actually have two options. You could build it within the Docker. We do have that capability, but we also have a Docker file where we build outside and we inject the build package in the Docker image during the build process. And we do that because while it defeats some purposes of portability and things like that, it's a lot faster because you build it on a local machine and with the cache, while instead if you have the Docker image, you would have to effectively start from scratch every time if you build it within the Docker image. For the release version, we build it within the Docker image, but for the development environment, it's a lot faster to build it outside, use the cache, and then inject it into the Docker image.
Perfect. Thank you, Andrea, because I had this question. I wanted to ask this question to an expert. So thank you. Now everything is clear for me. Sarthak, are you there? I see that you have some connection issues. Now he's freezed. Wrong timing. Okay. So Ali, I have a folder with a Go project. I like to create some CRUD API, for example, and then connect to a DB. But I've never published that article. I would like also to make a video about that. So it's really interesting for me to understand how can I improve, or maybe can you give some advices if you use Golang with Docker? Thank you.
Yeah, I think especially when building containers, like Go containers with Docker, I would say make excessive use of the builder pattern, where you basically build everything you need in the build phase of the Docker file, and you can put any garbage you want in there, import whatever you want, build your binary, and then at the end just copy the binary into the resulting container, and then your container is tiny and super lightweight. Another thing you can do is also like a cross compile really easily with Go for different platforms, so you don't have to worry about will it run here, you can create different versions, which is kind of cool. It's Go is really well suited to make launch very rapidly, because they'll if you have a Go container that's more than 20 megs, unless you have a huge application in there, which is kind of weird for a container as well. I would say your container should weigh about between 5 and 10 megs at most, and if you can even go as far as using a Scratch based image, which is fantastic, right? Like, yeah, nothing.
I need to test this. I want to make a clickbait video, like the smallest Go application.
Yeah. Exactly.
They go pretty well.
Yeah, you can write a hello world that will weigh like, I don't know, a kilobyte or something. I have no idea. Like, it will be nothing. So just the text, just hello.
I need to make that. Yeah. Because for example, I like really to use Docker with different languages. So having you here, for me, it's really a pleasure. Thank you so much. If you have any questions, just drop them in the chat, because in some minutes we will take some of them. So go for that. Yeah. About Docker Compose, we have announced the new version. So your thoughts about Docker Compose? For me, it has been one of the best moments when I was learning Docker. When I started to use Docker Compose, it really changed my approach. So, for example, do you use Docker Compose in your development environment? What are the thoughts about that? Whoever.
Well, I'm not a big Docker Compose user. I'm mostly when I interacted a lot with the Swarm user, and therefore a Docker Stack user, which is kind of similar.
I've used that.
Yeah, they're very similar. Just like I always viewed Docker Stack as the Swarm Compose version. That makes sense.
Exactly.
But it's really nice that you can define an entire suite of applications that relate to each other in some way, that you can just launch in one go, and then they're all kind of nicely grouped together, and you can start them together, kill them together, scale them together. It's pretty cool.
Perfect. I am that lazy that I usually... Sorry, Andrea, go.
Yeah, we have used it as well in a few of our projects, but then we switched to using Helm charts on top of Kubernetes, because that gives us better parity with the actual deployment environment, because we are big, at least I'm a big advocate of develop how you deploy. So the deployment was done within Kubernetes and Helm charts, and so we had to make the two identical. So our development environment switched from Docker Compose to Helm charts and Kubernetes.
Perfect. Thank you. Sarthak, are you there? Can you hear me, Sarthak? He can't hear me, but he said no. So he can hear me, but he says no. Okay. No problem. Yeah, Rotem, your experience with Docker Compose, have you used that?
Sorry.
Yeah. Okay. Rotem, yeah.
I wanted to give him the opportunity with all the internet problems that maybe it's over, but I guess not.
No.
I don't know.
So
This is messy, but
you can
we
continue.
will make it. Yeah.
My experience is very similar to Andrea's, actually. We use Kubernetes and Helm, so I'm not a big Docker Compose user, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think Docker Compose is really a tool, maybe also for the people who just get started. So once you get the idea, of course, we're talking about Docker Compose and Docker Compose file. So I think a Docker Compose file you use more. Docker Compose, usually you use that on your development environment. So yeah, that's it.
Yeah, I would agree with that statement. It's really easy to get started within your application. If you have like a couple of containers that need to talk to each other, just use Docker Compose. That's a really easy way to get started. But then as soon as things become a little bit more serious, at least in my case, whenever you deploy and get the deployment environment and testing and all of that, switching to Kubernetes and Helm charts was what we decided to do.
Okay, perfect.
I have used like Docker Compose all the time with PHP and Laravel. So yeah, it's become very handy when you have a lot of things to connect. So
yeah, I've seen an example, for example, and it's useful. Yeah, great. Yeah, so maybe some final thoughts if you want to start, Rotem, and then we can start maybe to answer some questions. I already see some of them. I have one for you, Andrea, later. Then let's see. You can go in the Q&A section in the meanwhile. Yes, but before that, maybe if you have some final thoughts, I think especially for beginners and also for people who are just getting started, and maybe of course, usually you start learning a language and then you discover containerization in different ways. So yeah, do you have some final thoughts about this? Rotem, would you like to start? Thank you.
I think I can reiterate some of the things that were said before. Just to, when you're writing that Docker file, be mindful of the base image. Usually you want to avoid rolling tags and stick to some specific version so you won't have surprises in the future or using the SHA. And the other thing, I think this was also said before, but also about making sure that you only install production dependencies, so you avoid having all those unnecessary dependencies that would take time and space and everything like that.
Yeah, thank you, Rotem. Andrea, any final thoughts about Docker and Java?
No, I think it's. I think as we stated, it's a good way to avoid having to mess too much with your environment on your machine. It's really easy to get some initial starting without having to install too many tools. So I think it's as we said, it's easy to get started on something with Docker and using the base images, the right tools in the builder, as Ali said. So yeah, I think it's pretty cool.
Perfect. And also, for example, I think that for example, on Java, you can have, for example, a lot of different versions of Java on different systems because they maybe have not updated on the last version. So I think that this solves a lot of headaches.
Yeah, as I said, common base image, you give it to everybody and you know they're running Java 11, you know they're running those options, you know they have the installation in that place, and you know the application's running tip-top on every machine you have, independently of the location, independently of the developer, independently if it's development or deployment.
Perfect. Sarthak, can you speak? Usually he has like a 30 seconds window to talk, and then he goes off and online. So if you can talk now, it's
so getting started with Docker is very easy for everyone. But once if you want to learn anything, you have to get your hand dirty. So so Docker is always good for everyone, because I always suggest for Laravel and PHP users to use Docker, since it doesn't affect your system environment, and it's very good when you are getting started with anything, like any language, because it becoming handy on that for different things. And if you can hear me.
Yeah,
So-
no more Sarthak, but yeah. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah.
I ruined it.
Yeah, no, don't worry. It was great. Yes, Sarthak is he likes to make challenges. And now he's on AWS challenge in 100 days, and he promised that after that he'll start with Docker. So I'm waiting for this, Sarthak, a lot.
Yes,
Yeah,
sure.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, Docker will be coming very soon.
Perfect. I'll be there and I'll stay tuned. I'll check your account every day. Yeah, Ali, I promise that I'll publish that article video. Is still on my machine and that folder like Docker Go. Now after speaking with you, I'm almost ready. Can you give some final thoughts about Docker and Go? And of course, Docker is written in Go. For example, I like the Go templates that you can use for the Docker output. Sometimes I make some tips about that, but yeah. So what can you say about that?
I don't know. I mean, it's, Docker and Go really go well together.
Nice point.
They're really like it's really a match made in heaven, because Docker is Go is great for writing backend systems, backend software, and Docker is great at building that infrastructure for you and providing that the base layer for it. So you kind of have this match made in heaven that works really, really well. And the fact that you can also, using Docker, produce images that are for the right platforms, and people can just via a tag get the right version, use the right version, and there's no other garbage in it. There's nothing else in it. There's no other magic in it. It's just the binary. It runs. It doesn't need to do that. Those things are just great, and it's very, very lightweight. Not to call out any other languages, but some languages are extremely, extremely heavy. So getting a container that's less than a gig is impossible with. And then
Why do I feel your?
What I don't know why you would ever feel targeted here.
Yeah, but don't worry, because we put you at the opposite sides of the video call for
exactly.
a purpose.
So it's just the efficiency of the whole system. You publish your containers into the registries. You download the container. It's a 10 meg container. It's downloaded in no time. It's fantastic. It's super fast. It's super efficient. It's easy. It's great.
Perfect. I'm almost ready to get started. I need anything to figure out the best way to install the dependencies using Go. Maybe we could talk about another half an hour, Ali, but maybe I'll stop you. But I'll check this, because I need to make this before publishing an article, please.
Sure.
No, but yeah, maybe another time. Please keep in touch. Let's see if we have some questions. I don't know. There is also William. I see two or three questions already. So let's get started. I've not forgotten anyone. Yeah, okay. So I have one question from Richard Leon Inguaruca. Don't know if I can click here, but I will not do, because I don't want to mess up with this live stream. So this answer live button, but I don't want to click that. So what do you advise, Oracle Java or OpenJDK?
So we at ONF, as I mentioned before, we're an open source software company, so we always go for the OpenJDK. Also because that is, you're certain that everybody has access to it. While the Oracle JDK, while it might be free for open source project, if you start using our project or your project, which is Java based, to commercialize something, it gets tricky with Oracle demands for fees and things like that, and restrictions. Another good option, if you're interested, Amazon has a Corretto JDK, so that is a good one as well. That has a little bit more than OpenJDK and is a little bit more tested and supported, because that's what Amazon uses inside their projects. So I would say if you don't have any very, very specific element that the Oracle JDK has, I would say just go for OpenJDK or the Amazon one. They both have Docker-based images that you can leverage. So that would be my advice.
Yeah, and by the way, there is a Scott just on chat, which is helping with the official image of OpenJDK. Thank you, Scott, for having us covered.
Thanks for the link.
Yeah, perfect. Okay. Okay, so I'm not an expert with Flask. I don't know if any of you has some experience, but we can try to make to answer to that. If you have some more experience than me, maybe it will be better. So Adita Narayan asked, I want to set up a workflow for my application, React frontend and Flask backend. Okay, how do I manage different environments using the same Docker file? I don't know if any of you has some experience with Flask. I can try to give an answer even if I'm not a Flask expert, because maybe I have the solution. But
Yeah,
does any of you has?
I think this is, I think the question here is, how do you build this environment? And the question is, can I use the same Docker file? And in which case the answer is no, you can't use the same Docker file. You can use multiple Docker files to build one Docker file for your front end, let's say, for the React front end, and one Docker file for your Flask backend, and then use Docker Compose, for example, to stick it together and deploy that, and then that will, as long as your front end container can talk to the Flask backend, you're good to go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think I also had this kind of questions at the beginning, because at the beginning you think that you need to put everything inside the same box. So
Right.
you think, okay, let's put everything inside this, and then we are using containers. But maybe if you are doing this, you are not really using containers, or maybe you're using it, in a different way. So yeah, I'll also go. Of course, if you want, you can check out multi-stage builds. For example, if you want different versions for the same application. But here, I think that Docker Compose is the way to start. So usually, one application, one service, one Docker file. I think this is a one-on-one relation. Yeah, perfect. Yeah, perfect. So okay, I don't know if we have any other questions. Can be done. One process, by container. I like this one. Perfect. I have not done any poll. Okay, maybe I'll make this later. Yeah, so maybe I have another question. When have you realized that learning Docker was really important? Because okay, you are learning, you check, maybe you look some videos, you get your hands dirty. But at some points, for example, for me, I wasn't even using that at my past job. They said, okay, this is time to really learn that for my language. For example, for me, it was JavaScript. So, for example, for any of you, what are your thoughts about this? Do you remember when you realized that Docker was important? If you think that's important, of course. Remember that we are on a Docker live event, so mind your words.
I think it's important to always learn new technology. It's hard to tell ahead of time which one is going to be really beneficial for yourself or in the industry. But with tools like Docker, the fact that you can build these isolated environments, that by definition is going to be useful, right? We already know that we knew when Docker came out that VMs were useful. The thing we didn't like about VMs is that they were too heavy, right? So that was annoying because it made deployment super complicated. You had this huge thing that I was like, you could shove 2 or 3, maybe a dozen VMs on one machine, but that was about it. And then, at the end of the day, really what you want to do is run one application in an isolated environment, and that's what Docker gives you. So it kind of it gives you a good indication that I think is going to be useful.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. When I saw how lightweight Docker was, I immediately understood that that was the technology that would be used in the future. I was still in university, so I said, yeah, this is something that I need to understand and work with. And so that's when I understood. And it was not really just a matter of the language. I think everybody uses it for a language because their project is written in their language, but it's more about the technology itself that enables you to do things independently of the language. And that shows you also how powerful that is. And also, to me, seeing the huge community also made me a little bit more, reassured me in how in using this, because it was not like a niche thing, even though it was not as big as today, but there was still a lot of people using it. So also getting help was something that I realized how important it was. And I saw a lot of people giving out help in the Docker community. So I said that's really good.
Yeah, this is a very great point, Andrea. For example, I think it really, of course, we are talking about tech, some maybe new features. Features are always welcome, but it's always about communities and people. There are some languages I'm not saying names now, but maybe they are still alive because there is a huge community around that, of course. So this is one of the reasons. Yeah, perfect. Yeah. Rotem, what can you say about this?
I'm actually from the other side of it. I listen to you all, and the only thing I can think of is I wish I knew, and I wish I tried it before, because when I joined Sneak and I started using containers, the only thing I could think is, how did I not do this before? This could have solved so many of my problems in the past, but unfortunately, I don't have this. Oh, this is so cool. This solved so many of my problems, because I kind of learned about it. Not too late, but too late for me, or when I would wish to learn about it.
Yeah, but I don't think that it's too late. I usually say that if you think that you are late in learning something, at least you are on the right path. So I think that you are now, at least we are doing this right. Yeah. Sarthak, can you say something about that? What do you say? Do you agree? Can you hear me? No.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, yeah, obviously, if you can hear once again with
Yeah,
the mic cracking
30
voice.
seconds
So,
about,
I realized Docker is super important. If you can hear me?
And we can, yes.
Yeah. No.
Okay, so
No.
yeah, I realized when I have to try a different version of PHP in different machines. So that was the time I was like, okay, so I'm going to turn off my video. Maybe that will help. So
Yeah, we do, yeah.
Docker is Docker will be very handy when you need to try different environment in a single machine. And at that time, I was like, okay, that is really cool thing, because I don't have to install different things, changing the environment every time.
He said his very last words. So, so thank you so much for joining this event. This is also my very first event as a host in an official Docker event. I'm super excited. Yeah, please check all of them. I don't know where we can put some links, or where can we follow you. Maybe in a couple of minutes. Can we just ask you, where can we find you, Rotem? Last 2 minutes. Yeah. Where can we find you?
Not very active. You can find me on Twitter.
I noticed.
Yeah. Now I'm saying it to the world that I'm not an active Twitter user. But you can feel free to reach out to me, _RTMSG. Can't even spell it.
Perfect. Yeah. Ali, where can we find you?
Yeah, I mean, Twitter, I guess, the Slack group.
Nice.
Yeah, and basically, my Twitter is at Al-Shabibi. Like my last name, except chop off the I, remove the dash. I guess it's complicated enough like that. And yeah, that's it. That's basically it.
I think that I'll bother you before publishing a video with Go and Docker, I think.
Sure. Feel free.
I'll bother you.
That'll be fun.
Yeah. Andrea, where can we find you?
On Slack here, or the ONF Slack, if you're interested in the work we do, and also on LinkedIn. Rotem, you're not the only one. I'm not a Twitter user at all. I never use it.
This is why we don't know each other. But yeah,
I just don't get it. It's not for me, I guess.
Me neither.
So, yeah. Slack or LinkedIn, that would be my best bet.
Oh yeah, LinkedIn.
Perfect. You are the one without glasses, because there is another Andrea Campanella online, but he has glasses. You have glasses too. So okay, so we don't have.
It's me. It's just that I don't like the reflection on the screen while I have my webcam on.
Yeah. And last but not least, Sarthak, where can he find you?
I don't know what my internet is playing with me. Every time I try to speak, it just creating in the mess.
No problem.
Listen, it's super clean. whenever I listen, whenever I try to speak, it becomes bad. Okay,
it's
so
really a problem.
you can find me on Twitter with Sarthak Savvy. So it's very easy, Sarthak and the last SAVVY. So Sarthak Savvy at Twitter. Very active with Francesco. So that's why I'm here.
Yeah, and he just forgot to mention that he has a YouTube channel close to 100,000 of subscribers. Yeah, just in case, if you want to check that, the name is a bit famous.
Yes, and I'm also going to start the Docker series on that.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, so you need to subscribe to that. So thank you.
Yes.
We are done. Just 1 minute late. I don't know if William is still here or what can you do about this. But
very closely,
William,
very closely. Yes.
You have been there all the time.
All this time. No,
all the time.
Perfect.
Yeah, but I think we're done. I think we're gonna take a little break and then we're gonna start again. We'll start the second panel in 15 minutes. So thank you, Francesco. Thank you all to
perfect.
all
Thank you so
panelists.
much
Really,
to all the guests
really
here. It has been a very great experience also for me as a host, a new experience. So thank you
You
so
did
much.
great, Francesco. Thanks.
Perfect.
Thank you all.
Everybody.
Okay, we are done.
Bye-bye.
Bye.